Good morning. Good morning. It's November 1st. We officially have 2 months left to 2026, folks. So if it hasn't been the way you wanted it to be, now's your chance. Grab a notebook or grab a piece of paper or a pen, or you can rewatch this afterwards. So autumn alignment is over. We completed that. That was a 6-session group of shows, and there was worksheets for every show. You can find all that stuff at unbreakablewisdom.com. You can find all the worksheets in free stuff, and you can find all the shows by replaying the recordings or the audio. Okay, so this morning I want to talk to you about story. Your story, how you're the author of your story, what the hell that even means, and how it is really important for your future, and how important it is to really dig into this topic over the next 60 days so that you can have your 2026 turn into the year that you really want it to be. Good morning, you guys. Okay. So you're a storyteller, right? Oh, Anastasia's live with us. All right. She's a very good friend of mine. And she's an amazing healer too, by the way. Okay. So you're a storyteller. You're the author of your story. I talk about story a lot. What the hell does that even mean, Noelle? Here's what that means. It means that things happen in your life and you make up a meaning to whatever happened. And when we're younger, something occurs, we make it mean something. We tell ourselves a story about that meaning. And then lo and behold, we end up designing the whole rest of our life based on what something meant way back there when we only had a limited number of tools available to us, right? So what people don't understand is that in every moment, you're interpreting. Every moment of your life, you are either reinserting old stories or you're making up new ones. Your words are your pen. If you were an author, you might be typing your story or you'd be writing your story. And in your life, your words are your pen or your computer. You are speaking your story. So every time you tell the narrative about anything, whether it was a past event or a present event, you tell the narrative, you give life to that story. Like sometimes in a fairy tale, you'll see that, like somebody will open a book and the words will like come out like a, magical whatever. And they're like, they have power. That's real. Your words have power. The words you write, the words you say, the words you type, like that all has power. The most power comes from the words that are coming out of your mouth. Okay. So if when you were 5 years old, you tried to do something and you didn't succeed, and someone in your family told you that you couldn't do it, or you weren't big enough, or you weren't bold enough, or you were just a girl, or you were just a boy, like whatever. They told you something about that event. And then you made up a meaning about that. And then every time something like that occurs, you reinterpret and you bring that back as a real thing for yourself. So every time you have something hard to do and you try to do it and it doesn't work out necessarily the way that you want, instead of assigning that a new meaning, you attach the meaning from back there. Whatever you told yourself back there when your father, mother, grandfather, elder, whoever told you can't do it, you're too little, it's not going to work, whatever. And then lo and behold, you're 35, 45, 55, 65, 75, and you're living the same freaking stories over and over again. And then you're sitting in the middle of your life wondering why it's not working the way that you want. And here's the fantastic news. You have the ability to reinterpret everything in every moment, because each moment that occurs next is made up of our interpretations about it. This is a really elevated conversation, by the way. So it may not make sense to some people, and that's okay. I'm speaking to the people that can hear me this morning. Your whole life is made up of your reinterpretations of the past, the present, and your interpretation of the future. That is your life. The fabric of your daily life is very alive. It is moving. It is not stagnant. So when you open your mouth to speak to someone, you get to choose the interpretation of the story that you're going to tell. If you're going to tell a story about something that happened in the past, you have the ability to reframe and reinterpret that in the words that are coming out of your mouth right now. Do you understand? If somebody left you, or somebody died, or something awful happened, or you have a tragedy or a trauma, when you open your mouth right now on November 1st, 2025, and you get ready to speak about that, you get to assign meaning to it right here, right now. So you could very well assign a meaning that is different than the one that you've assigned for the whole rest of your life, right? The whole past time, you might have been telling the story like, I was a victim and this happened and that happened, and oh, poor me, and I'll never make it work, and I'll never have the balance in my bank account that I want, and whatever. I call bullshit. I call bullshit. When you tell the story now, it could be like, hey, I had this marriage and it didn't work out. And oh my God, I learned so many things. Let me tell you what I learned. I learned like this isn't the person for me, and I was overgiving and overdoing, and I didn't know how to set boundaries and whatever, right? If you had a financial circumstance that didn't work out, you can tell that story in a different way. I learned so much. I learned like not to trust those types of people with my money, or I learned how to be more responsible, or I learned that I shouldn't just rack up my credit cards having no idea of how I'm going to pay them off, or whatever. You get to assign a new meaning in every moment. Okay? So the opportunity here, well, and that meaning, right? Whatever you assign as a meaning, that continues to shape your life. So as you continue to tell stories about things that happen to you that you don't wish to see happen again, and as you continue to tell those stories with the old meaning and the old interpretation, right? Those continue to shape the past, and they dictate the future. I don't know if you all really understand that you continue to dictate the past inside of the present by the stories that you tell. I see some of my students on here that have been with me for decades. So jump into the chat here, you guys, and comment. I know you understand this because you've been working these principles with me for almost a decade now. Your words shape your reality. Your understanding shapes your reality. Your interpretation shapes your reality. Okay? And your past is part of your reality in the retelling of it. So if everything is still very much alive, you can actually heal and reframe what's behind you by telling a new story about it right now. You don't have to be the victim of circumstance. You are the author of the story. You are the author of the story in every word that you speak now, right here, right now, in the present. So the opportunity in the last 2 months of this year is you could literally reframe all of the stories that have not worked for you. And the first way to do that is to start catching them, right? When something happens, before you react, hold on, ask yourself, where's that coming from? Where's that coming from? If you don't have money to pay a bill, or the more, like, whatever, right? If your checking account, and I always use money as an example because I feel like that's a very real thing for people, right? So if you look in your checkbook or in your bank balance and it's lower than you thought or than you want it to be, that first initial that you have, right? That's based on something old. Because if you were like a little person and I showed you the numbers in a bank account, you wouldn't have any idea what the hell that meant. It wouldn't mean anything to you. You'd be like, oh, what's that? When you look in there and you see a number that you don't like, you immediately go into a whole thing. And that whole thing is based on your interpretation of the past. If you guys could really hear me this morning, if you could hear me, your whole life could change with just like listening to this one show and putting it into action. Because in every moment, you hold the power for the next moment, and you actually hold the power for the past moment as well. And this is something that most people don't understand. If all time exists at the same time, and again, this is a high conversation, so if this isn't resonating with you, it's okay, just shut it off. If all time exists at the same time, you have the power in every moment to reinterpret everything. And that's huge. That's huge. Michelle's saying, we speak what we seek. We can either be the victim or the warrior of our stories. True. Anastasia is saying when she's in a good headspace, she's in the making shit up club, meaning she tells a new story, the story that she wants it to be. I love that. So if you're going along and you can take that pause or that moment and you can catch the fact that you're living in an interpretation of a story, and you can analyze like quickly the origin of that story, like, all right, where did that come from? How come when I look at my bank balance, all of a sudden I feel worthless, like a loser, like I can't do it? Like, why am I not seeing that lower bank balance as an opportunity to go forward and do something fresh and new and make some more money? Like, do you understand? When something occurs, you immediately assign a meaning to that. And most of the time, you are assigning a meaning from the past. And usually it's not a good one. Usually it's not something that serves you well. So what happens is something occurs, you assign a meaning to it, and then you construct the next moment based on that, right? You assign the meaning, and now you're off constructing the future. You're constructing the next 2 months based on, you woke up this morning, you saw something, you did something, you felt a particular way, you assigned a meaning to it that is likely some interpretation of the past, and now that's going to be the truth about you for the next 60 days unless you call bullshit. Choose interpretations and stories that are going to serve you for where you're going. Understand that you are the author of this story that you're living in right now, in this time frame, in this reality, in this universe, right here, right now. You're the author. You've got the pen. You've got the voice. You get to decide. You get to decide. I have a client that wants to buy a new car, and she messaged me very late this week and said, and now comes the stories. she wants to buy this new car, and she said, and now comes the old yucky stories of how I can't do it, I won't have the money, whatever. Okay. So you get to make up a new story and insert a new interpretation. You get to do that. And Anastasia's reminding us that you can have a thought or a feeling, right? You don't have to buy into that. Meaning, this is what I always tell you. Like when something comes and it's not helpful, don't go down the rabbit hole with it. Don't go down there and pull out a chair and a table and give it a scone and an espresso and start to reminisce with it about all the horrible things that have happened to you and how come this isn't going to work out and oh my God, stop that. When an adverse thought comes or an interpretation tries to reinsert itself, you get to say, no, that's not happening. My client gets to say, I'm going to buy this vehicle, I'm going to get a favorable loan for it, and I'm going to sell enough properties to pay the payment easily and effortlessly. That can be her new story. She doesn't have to believe the stuff that her father told her about her or the stuff that, her ex, like whatever. She doesn't have to believe any of that because it's not the truth about her. Whoever you were and all those past things that happened, all the things, you were a version of yourself that is completely different than who you are right now today. So the interpretation that you had of whatever happened back there was based on who you were back there. You're not that person anymore. So why the hell would you keep hanging on to the old interpretation? That makes no sense. It's not even logical. If something happened to you when you were 10 and you assigned an interpretation to that and made up a story, if you're now 50, what the hell? That's not the truth about you anymore. It's just something that occurred. It was an occurrence. It's part of the fabric of who you are, but you get to assign a different interpretation to it. I don't know if you guys can understand this. I hope that you can. Whatever's happening now in the present, you're assigning an interpretation to that too. And 10 years from now, that will be the past. And 10 years from now, you'll still have the opportunity to assign a different interpretation to what happens right now today on November 1st, 2025. On November 1st of 2050, you can look back here and, make a different story. Ashley says I'm landing. Thanks, Ash. At least I'm landing with some of you. This is a really important conversation because we're coming up on the end of the year, right? And this is when a lot of people just go into the holiday slide, I call it. You go, oh, it didn't work out the way I wanted. Oh, I'll just get through the holidays and I'll fix it all next year. No, you have like 60 something days, maybe 60. November has 30 days and December has 31 days. So maybe you have like 61 days to do something different. Like that's a lot of days. Don't go into the holiday slide. Just because you're going to eat and give presents, right? You don't have to just like fall asleep at the wheel. Don't do that. You deserve better than that. Write a new story. Make up new interpretations. For those of us that have been through hell and so much trauma and so much bullshit, like we could literally say, we are so wise. Look how wise we are. Holy shit, we're so smart. So smart now. Like, oh my God, how can I share my wisdom? Which is exactly what I'm doing, right? I've been through so much hell and so much trauma. I'm like a freaking genius now. That's my interpretation. I'm not a victim of what happened to me. Screw that. That there's no power in that. There's no value in being a victim. Where's the value? There's no value in being a victim. There's value in taking responsibility for your own life. And how you do that is you become responsible for the interpretations that you assign to the events that occur in your existence, including the interpretations that you assign from the past, assigned to past events. The breakups, the losses, the learnings, all of it. You probably have equivalent of like 6 MBAs in life. And let me tell you something, some of these younger generations need that. They need you because they can't even have real conversations. They're busy texting people, breaking up and doing because they can't talk one-on-one. You get to say, you get to make up your own story. You get to assign the interpretation. Okay? Christy's reminding us the past is just what happened and it doesn't define you. You get to decide that, which is exactly right. This is exactly what I'm saying. So this week, I invite you to remember that you are a storyteller. Story doesn't just work when you're marketing your business. Story works inside your life. You're a storyteller. And every time you open your mouth, you're telling a story. And that story can help other people. People require a lot of help right now, just by the way. You know, I don't go into politics and I won't do that here ever because I just believe it's very polarizing and that's not what I'm about. The world needs a lot of help. There are a lot of people that don't understand that they're the author of their own story. There's a lot of people out there right now that are suffering from losses of all kinds of different things. And they could really use the help of some of you that have the wisdom about how you can take responsibility for your own life and how you can change things and how you can enact and work prosperity principles, because those types of things will work for everybody if they can learn to practice. So you have an opportunity to help others also. When you understand that you are the author of your own story and you begin to take responsibility for the interpretations that you assign to things, then you have the ability to share that with other people as well. You have the ability to hold somebody's hand through the process of understanding how they can transform their life. It takes discipline and hard work. And I mean hard work in that when a thought comes that's not the one that you want, you have to do the work to assign another thought, to assign another interpretation, to make it mean something else. You don't just get to fall on the floor and be a victim of circumstance. That's what I mean about hard work. The payoff is well worth it though, because your life will transform, your life will change. So my invitation to you this week, we have 2 months left. I want you to remember that you're the storyteller. You even get to make up the story about the holidays. You get to make all that up. You get to make up that it's going to be perfect, that there will be the perfect amount of everything that's required and it will be wonderful. Or you get to make up a story about how stressed you're going to be and how you're not going to have the money. Like, people make up all kinds of stories about the holidays. I invite you to make up new stories about your holidays this year. Have this holiday season be the best one so far that you've ever had, because you're conscious and awake and you're assigning meaning. You're assigning meaning consciously to the past, present, and future. You are deciding what your interpretation is, and you are choosing interpretations that serve you and bring you to where you're going. You are the storyteller. You are the one that can change the narrative. You can change the ending. You can change the beginning. You can change the middle. You can go back and edit the old stories. You have a lot of power. You have all the power. Most of you don't understand that and you don't use it. I'm inviting you to use it. I'm inviting you to understand that you are the active interpreter of your existence moment by moment. And you get to reinterpret and reframe as you see fit. Some of you are so stuck in old rhetoric and old stories that you can't even barely see your way out. And you're miserable and you're sad and it's hard. It doesn't have to be like that. You can draw a line in the sand today and decide that you are going to take back your power and you are going to make up new stories and assign new interpretations to things that have already occurred so that they serve you and empower you rather than take energy away from you. That's my invitation to you. Remember that you're holding the pen. You're speaking the words. You have the power to change your whole life, and it starts with changing your stories. I hope you guys have a great week. I will see you next Saturday.